I'm Monty Wilson and I'm a car guy. Up and down the California coast, there are amazing cars, interesting people, and a million stories to tell. So join me and my friends as we enjoy car life on the 101. We're here today at one of my favorite events of the year, the Art Center College of Design Auto Classic. Joining us today is Stuart Reed, and Stuart's the head of the transportation design here at Art Center. First of all, incredible show.
Thank you.
And you've got such a fascinating program. Can you tell us a little bit about Art Center and the transportation program?
Yeah, well, the transportation design program here at Art Center really was formalized in the 40s. I mean, the school was founded in 1930 in LA, as you know, but and transportation design was a part of it. But by the mid-40s, Strother McMinn, who grew up here in Pasadena, was asked to come back by the president of Art Center back from Detroit, where he was with General Motors, and he really formalized our transportation design program. So Strother, we all love his legacy because what he built here was phenomenal. You know, as a kid growing up in Pasadena, Strother would pedal his bike over to Walter Murphy Coach Builders on Colorado and met the great designer Frank Hershey that did so many bodies for Duesenbergs and Packards and things like that.
And that's back in the day of the big coach builders?
In the late 20s, yeah. And so that legacy kind of continues forward. You know, we just like to honor what Strother built here. We think it's still the best transportation design program in the world.
Well, it was the first, wasn't it?
Absolutely the first.
Yeah. And I mean, from what I understand, it's the best too, because I mean, look at your alumni.
Yeah, if you look at the list of alumni, many who are here today, you know, who are heads of a lot of the local studios as judges for us. And it's an amazing list. And some that aren't here, you know, Frank Stephenson, head of design for McLaren, for example. But
wow,
you can just go around the world, you know, Shiro Nakamura at Nissan. And we just have this amazing list of alums that went to Art Center and studied either under McMinn or some of our great faculty like Rich Petrushka. So we're very proud of that.
You've designed a few cars yourself. When we were talking earlier, it's hard to keep track of how many you've touched, right?
Yeah, when I graduated from Art Center as a young, 22-year-old, I had 4 offers, 3 in Detroit, GM, Ford, and Chrysler. And interestingly, one here in Southern California with Bruce Myers, who was the man that really kind of created the whole dune buggy kit car, Myers-Manx, the Baja 1000 off-road race. And so I ended up going to work for Bruce for 3.5 years.
Oh, that had to be fun.
Designed a roadworthy little kit car, the Manx SR, for him.
Now, Los Angeles has kind of turned into the design mecca for the auto industry. Is that a fair statement?
It absolutely is. I mean, there are almost 25 advanced design studios right here in Southern California for every major automaker in the world. And you know what that means for us is it's obviously a center for design, but our students can do internships at these local studios. I have access to great faculty who are working professionals rather than retired people, you know. So it's really up to the minute people who have just gotten back from Yokohama or Munich or Detroit.
Wow.
And they're teaching our students. So, you know, it's really a great relationship.
Now, your job has got to be particularly challenging right now because you've got things like autonomous driving, you've got electric vehicles, hybrid vehicles, the whole industry to me is in one of the biggest states of flux it's ever been in. How do you educate your designers to take that into consideration?
Yeah, well, these are topics that are discussed constantly, and of course the students and the faculty are interacting. We're always doing sponsored projects here, and we've had a lot of briefs in the last 2 years, as you can imagine, that are around the topic of autonomy and semi-autonomy. And of course there are levels, and some of the manufacturers are a little more reluctant. They're saying, there are going to be driverless cars at some point, but between here and there, a lot of stages in between. There are issues, not just technology issues, but issues with policy and ethics that are going to be discussed a lot before it's a really mature system.
Yeah, and it's going to change our whole ecosystem. When you think about insurance and things like that, how do you handle all those things in that brave new world?
Absolutely. But on the other side of it, I mean, it offers an amazing promise, toward better use of our infrastructure, more efficiency, more safety. Some of the things we see, like ride sharing and new approaches to what we think of as taxis are all part of this same change. So the business of the whole thing is shifting what car design will be.
Now, would you mind giving us a little tour of some of the highlights of the show?
What I'd like to start with, we've got an interesting little cluster of vans, and kind of the whole story of the phenomena that's led to the vans that we know like minivans, and it's very interesting.
Let's go check it out. Welcome back to Car Life on the 101. The Art Center Classic Car Show is all about design and the people who help create these iconic cars. Some are production ready and others completely whimsical to satisfy the creative urge of the designer. This is the car that started my love for Italian cars. When I was about 7 years old, I was given a Hot Wheels version that looked identical to this car, but was only about the size of one of these cars' lug nuts. The rest, they say, is history, but one day I do hope to be able to experience one of these beautiful cars from behind the wheel. The thing I love about this school and the Art Center Classic Car Show is the chance to see the imagination and the creativity that goes into these designs, whether it be for a new low-production exotic sports car or the newest high-tech family sedan. There's only a few shows that I take in a year along the 101. This is one of them. Let's catch up with Stuart Reed, the head of transportation design for the Art Center College of Design.
So this is an amazing car. I've been trying to get to our show here at Art Center for 8 or 9 years.
Really?
This is a 1936 Stout Scarab owned by Larry Smith from Detroit, and it's perhaps the first minivan.
Really?
Yeah, Bill Stout was an aviation engineer that worked with Henry Ford developing the Ford Trimotor. And when
legendary aircraft.
Yeah. And when he got to the point of wanting to build a car, his whole idea was an aircraft-inspired sort of what we'd call a one-box or monovolume car, which minivans are today. But this thing is amazing because it's got the Ford V8 in the rear, and maybe the only thing close to it some years later would be the Czechoslovakian Tatra or something like that. But the interior is fantastic. It's as if you're in a Pan Am Clipper or something flying to South America. I mean, it has cane and very avant-garde seating. So it's very non-conventional. And
I love the Art Deco elements in the front of this car. It's just stunning.
I mean, inspired by the Scarab Beetle. I mean, the Scarab motif on the front is great.
Let's go take a look at a couple more. So Stuart, the Volkswagen bus has got to be one of the happiest cars on the road. This is a special one though, right?
Yeah, I mean, the 63-23 window, I mean, this is perhaps the one that started it all in terms of our love affair with vans, This belongs to Michael and Barb Malamet. They kindly brought this. Mm-hmm. This is just a great example of a 63, multi-window van. And, in Germany, these things originally were more commercial vehicles. Bring them to the U.S. with all the windows and the seats, and they just became this endearing product that changed a generation of families, using them. And then, of course, later becoming the kind of the hippie van.
So, Stuart, this is the first one that I've ever seen that actually has a travel trailer.
Yeah, I'll have to ask Michael later where they found this, but I think they're synchronized in terms of the date and everything. So this is a travel kit you might have seen back in the day in the early 60s.
I got to tell you, so I've driven Volkswagen buses. With a travel trailer, momentum and downhill's got to be your friend, right?
Yeah, well, Michael was just telling us a few minutes ago that it was real hard for him to get up the hill and
up
get
the grade,
pulling the travel trailer.
40 angry horsepower.
Yeah, or probably 36, actually.
That's fantastic, though. Well, let's go take a look at a couple more. Stuart, these are some amazing vans that I see here, but what's a DKW? I've never seen one before.
Well, we could ask Scott Bozé, but I believe this is Deutsche Kinderwagen. I believe it's the Audi or Auto Union group in the early 50s.
I see the 4 circles on the front, yeah.
It's just the cutest little commercial van from Germany.
Now, what do we have down at the end there?
The gray vehicle is an Austrian military vehicle called, it's made by Steyr. It's called Pinzgauer, and they're used by Austrian military.
Let's go take a look at a couple more. So, Stuart, the Pebble Beach Concourse is the pinnacle of car shows, and this one Best in Show, right?
Yeah, this 38 Delage, owned by Sam and Emily Mann, was Best of Show in '05. And it's a Delage aerodynamic coupe. I mean, it speaks for itself. It is just outrageously beautiful.
Very, once again, very aerodynamic. A lot of aviation influence when you look at the windshield and the way it's designed in that.
Yeah, I mean, the windshield wrapping into the side, this was one of the early cars to do that, you know. In this era, so many cars still had flat planes for glass.
Right.
So to get that kind of contour is fantastic. And make sure you go all the way around it because it tapers to the back and these fenders taper. I'd love to know what the actual aerodynamic stats are in this car.
The drag coefficient?
Yeah, it would be kind of fun to make a digital model of it. And
let's see if we can take it into wind tunnels.
Yeah.
Now, we also have a couple Pebble Beach cars that are very aviation influenced as well. Let's go take a look at
The
them.
Voisins are here.
And yet another Pebble Beach Grand Champion or Best of Show, right?
Yeah, this is Peter and Merle Mullins' 1935 Voisin Aerodyne, and it's just it just breaks all the traditional rules of car design in this era. I mean, Gabriel Voisin was an aeronautical engineer, and so his sensibilities about design were very different. You know, there are a lot of little aviation touches. If you look at all the hinges in the center of the hood, on the doors, they're all continuous hinges or so-called piano hinges, which is what aircraft use because it's a lighter, more efficient way to hinge things versus a big, heavy hinge like every other car in this era had. You know, most cars in this era, the fender struts would have been inside the fenders, you know, hidden and very heavy. Voisin did it like aeronautical struts, like you would support, you know, an aircraft wing.
Was that for design? Was that for weight? Or
I would say weight, and it's an engineer's approach to how to make something lighter and very practical, and kind of celebrate the engineering in a different way, you know. So
now the whole roof slides back. Is this one of the first sunroofs?
it could be. That's worth researching. But
Yeah.
here again, it's back to the engineer's sensibilities. You know, a designer would probably shape things more carefully and accelerate a surface. This is a single arc, which works as a, you know, very well with the geometry of a sliding top. So it's actually brilliant and simple. And of course, there are windows on the top that when the top slides back, you still have rear visibility. So
Oh, that's true. I hadn't even thought of that. You see
the car is just dripping with interesting little engineering details that you just don't see on other cars in this era.
Stuart, thanks so much. We really enjoyed it.
It's my pleasure. We're having fun today, aren't we?
Absolutely. Welcome back. Right now we're inside the Art Center College of Design. I've got a couple of my buddies here with me. Got Bruce Heaven, which is an Art Center College of Design alumni and also a trustee on the Board of Trustees, and Chris Belanger, which is into architectural design. So guys, you know, Bruce, you've attended here and it was kind of a life-changing thing for you, right?
Yes, I made a career not just on, well, I went through as an illustrator, but not just through illustration, but through design and later through lynda.com.
So, Chris, as a designer, you look at some of this stuff. Do you find inspiration seeing some of the things here at Art Center?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, because what we do with houses is we start with sketches, we try to come up with an idea, we develop it into something, and that translates across all different kinds of design. So for me, it's really exciting to see how that process plays out in different areas, in cars, in graphic design, and all product design, all kinds of ways.
I tell you, the students' work here is just unbelievable. Let's take a look at some of these cars that we see around here. You know, what's fascinating to me is when we were talking to Stuart Reed earlier, just how much automotive design has changed when you get into electric power plants and things like that. So Bruce, as a design alumni and a car guy, when you're involved with the school and you talk to students, what kind of things do you coach them on?
You know, there's a lot of different ideas and processes, and we're going through a lot of things as a school. But it's really trying to figure out the best way to help the students to get to where they need to go. I mean, ultimately it's to a job. It's starting either, in some cases, their own automobile company with like Henrik Fisker, or you look at famous designers that come out here like Chris Bangle, and actually most car designers come out of here, but they're all trying to solve different problems. They have different cars, different markets. They're trying to make a car to fit this demographic that's issued to them. So a lot of the projects we see here at school are either class assignments or some cases they're sponsored assignments by the various automobile companies.
Now, the Art Center College of Design isn't just about cars.
No.
There's a lot of other programs. You mind showing us some of the things that we do here?
Basically, design isn't about what you make, it's about the problems you solve. And what are the problems we're trying to solve here?
You know, it's interesting, design touches every aspect of a product, doesn't it?
It does, but a lot of people think it's about how it looks, and there's some of that, but the truth is it's also how it functions and how it forms.
How it looks is sort of the final surface of what you see, but it's all the practical and the emotional and the mechanical and the technical.
And it's
that
also
lead
the
to that.
experience.
The experience,
of it.
Yes.
that's the ultimate, is how do you emotionally feel after experiencing a product?
It's just really interesting to see, we don't see everything they're doing here or what the problems or what the assignments were, but they've solved these problems in such a manner. Sometimes everything looks simple, but usually the simplicity they do really encapsulates the complexity of the issues they're dealing with.
And sometimes the simplest solution was the hardest to get to because you had to distill it down to what really mattered.
Sometimes, and they're also picking up their kind of visual vocabulary of, they're learning who they are, they're learning what their voice is, both visually and otherwise.
Let's go check out the car design studios, because I was blown away with some of the students and things they're doing in there. You want to check it out?
Yeah.
We're here with soon-to-be graduating senior Bradley Capel. Bradley, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for joining us. So this is one of your creations right here, right?
It is. It was a long process working on a Mini Cooper, but we actually were able to build a full-size model that's going to be part of my grad show, and I'm so excited.
Now, what's your experience been here at Art Center College of Design?
I'd have to say incredible. It exceeded all of my expectations. I think the one thing that I came in wanting to do, obviously, was to design cars, but I feel like the outcome has been not only presentation skills, communication skills, being able to understand packaging on vehicles, being able to understand styling, and being able to understand kind of where you want it to go for the future, not just 5 or 6, 7 years, but 10, 15, 20 years in the future, and how to really make that visual and realization and being able to share that with others in a way that they can understand as well.
So what are those factors? 10 years, 15 years in the future, what are you thinking about? Where do you see it going? What do you think is going to happen?
Oh yeah, that's a great question. I think the thing that we have to look at going forward with not just manufacturing technology but drivetrain technology is we are forced to look at all of these emerging trends and understanding how not only the public is going to interact with them, but be able to understand, learn, adapt, how they're going to integrate it into their lives. Because when EVs started to first emerge on the market, a lot of people weren't interested in plugging in at home. They weren't interested in that. So a lot of other companies were like, well, what about hydrogen? And still people were like, well, hydrogen sounds dangerous. So I think that we had to focus on how to educate and excite too, because I think the one thing that we are really pressured with when we get into styling for concepts that we want to work on is how can we make it exciting at the end of the day? How can we make you say, not only do I want it, but let's build it today?
So how do you feel with your experience? Like, why did you choose Art Center to begin with? And now that you've gone through this, I mean, I've known you for about 2 or 3 years now, and you always seem so excited. And I know you have some plans after this, but why Art Center? Why did you want to start here?
I feel like from the beginning, I knew I wanted to be a car designer. Even from a kid standpoint, I love to draw cars. I grew up in a household where transportation was kind of a familiar thing. My father's a pilot, and so when I was looking at schools, I actually, growing up in Nashville, Tennessee, I said I want to be a car designer, and one of the first links that popped up was Art Center, and I saw that it was out in Los Angeles, and I thought, boy, that's awfully far from me. I spoke with my parents at the time. I said, can we please just go check it out? Can we look at it? I just want to see what it's all about. We got here, we took the tour, and by the end of it, even my dad was like, this is I even want to go here. I even want to go here. What do we have to do to help make this happen? And I have to give many thanks to my parents that they were really reinforcing of what my aspirations were as a young adult and what I wanted to be outside of the bubble that is, east of the Mississippi.
I came here 25 years ago, and I had a very similar experience. I came here, and I go, this is it. This is it.
Yeah.
This is where I'm going.
Yeah. It blows your mind, and I think that the fact that most of the students here are so friendly, welcoming, they want you to come into the studio, myself included. That's what I wanted to pass on. Once I started going through the process, I saw the importance of sharing everything that I do with those that are interested, because it's like, in order to keep the excitement there, you have to be able to show that this is something that you love, and that it's more than just a passion, it's a lifestyle.
Well, Bradley, yeah, thanks so much for taking the time.
Thank you.
If
Thanks
this
for
whole
having me.
car thing doesn't work out, call me crazy, guys. I think he's got a future in TV.
Thank you. If you'd like to learn more about Art Center, visit artcenter.edu or carlifeonthe101.com.
Thanks so much for joining us this week. If you want to learn more, go to carlifeonthe101.com, and we'll see you next week.